Hey guys, it's summertime, and life is all about weekends, cookouts, and all things outdoors. And the JCPenney men's store is the place to go for some serious summer style, where shorts, tees, and swim trunks from brands like St. John's Bay, Dockers, and Izod go for a cool 40 to 50% off. And spend $25 or more with coupon on men's apparel, shoes, and accessories, and you get $10 off. We've got your look, your style, and a great price. The men's store at JCPenney. When it fits, you feel it. Coupon valid 5/28 to 5/31. Some exclusions apply. Check jcp.com now or your Thursday newspaper for coupon and details.
Giancarlo Stanton and the Miami Marlins travel to New York to face the Mets.
Rip right field towards the corner. Gone!
The pregame's at 3:30 Eastern, followed by first pitch at 4:30. Saturday on ESPN Radio. SVP and Russillo, the podcast.
Hey, it's SVP and Russillo. We appreciate you checking out the podcast. We talk about the Brady news, get the thoughts of Mark Dominik on that, made Tim Kurkjian laugh with a slick Rick Dougie Fresh question. Also, obviously, some baseball. How about A-Rod? What an odd situation for him and his squad. Are we printing the shirts? Golden State gets a win. Much needed to even up their Western Conference semi at 2-2. We talk, as I mentioned, about the Brady situation, but we spent a lot of time talking about the fact that our show, this podcast, which we appreciate you supporting with the fervor that you have, it's winding down. I'm heading to do SportsCenter solo in the fall, which is exciting. But there's mixed emotions because this has been great, and I've loved it. And we talk a lot about that in a podcast that starts now.
Now, SVP and Russillo on ESPN Radio.
And ESPNRadio.com.
We'll start with some news that was broken this morning about our show. And the news is that in the fall, this show won't be our show any longer. I will be doing a SportsCenter here at midnight. And the cool thing about it is it's SportsCenter. I mean, it's not going to be some variety show. We don't know that if I can get Rakim as the house band done, but I don't believe he's coming up to Bristol. I don't think there's going to be a couch. I don't think we're interviewing people about their movies or books or any of that. It's SportsCenter, but it'll be our version. And that's a really exciting possibility. It's never been done before. So your boss will say, hey, we want you to do this. And my answer at first and at second and at third was no, no, and no because of this. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you had to say about us this morning on Twitter. Twitter can be a forum. It's not, what do we always say? The Internet's not the place to go for positive reinforcement.
Right.
It isn't. But today has really been incredible. And I wish everyone got to do something in their life that was consumed by people that they would know how much it meant. And that's what we've really felt today. And it's incredibly humbling. And the reason I always said no is because I loved this. What you and I set out to do, we did. We did what we wanted to do the way we wanted to do it. And the truth of the matter is we didn't always have buy-in. We didn't always have support because I don't think people got it. But we always knew the people that were supposed to get it, you all, would. And today is the day that if there was ever any question, those questions are erased. I wish every boss in this joint would read our mentions today and see what it is that this show has come to mean to you. And it means more than I can articulate that you've allowed us to keep you company throughout your days or your evenings if you download the podcast or whatever. But here's the truth of the matter. I'm going to be done rambling in a second. Ultimately, this show couldn't have kept going the way it was going because Ryan's not a backup singer. We're a group. We're a duo. Sometimes I do backup vocals. Sometimes he does lead vocals, whatever. But ultimately, for a guy as talented as him, a guy who drives so many of the great ideas about what this show is, which are his, ultimately, I got to get out of the way. He's got to have the room to really explore this space. And so, was it going to keep going forever like this? Probably not. We joked the other day, what was I? Set? I was set. I was good. I could have done this forever. But a guy as talented as you got to be able to stretch out and make it yours, whether it's here or someplace else. And so I don't know. It wouldn't have gone on forever. I would have been happy if it did, but it just couldn't. And so I get this amazing opportunity with SportsCenter. You're going to have amazing opportunities too. But this morning's been incredibly, incredibly validating, I think.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
and you're always reminded that there's so many more good people out there than just the people that you go, man, is this the only voice I'm hearing right now? And we're guilty of that, and I have to remind myself. And today was a reminder that you go, this many people liked what we did. And you're right, in the beginning it was really tough. It was really tough for me.
I know.
Because I kind of signed up to for something that I didn't really know what it was a great opportunity, and you wanted it to be me. I wanted to do it with you, but I didn't think everybody was that excited about it, and it kind of like got dragged out for a while. We both know that at times like there was talk about me not being around, and I wasn't quite sure what was going to happen. But I think what's happened the last 2 years, and that's normal, you know what I mean? A radio show takes a very long time, and the sad part of this is that now as we enter what would have been our 6th year in July, well, we would have been on for 6 years in July. That's when you're supposed to start reaping the benefits of now really, okay, you've clearly become something. People have found you. The numbers are really good.
Yachts.
Yeah, right. And
jewelry.
And in the beginning, you're right. I don't know that people really understood what the show was. It wasn't Mike and Mike. It wasn't Colin, and that's okay. And those shows are great. But I think it was kind of cool that the lineup was so different from show to show to show. But for whatever reason, it was an extremely challenging time in the beginning where now it's not a, yeah, we did it. It's more of this feeling where you go, we knew that people would like this. We knew that people would like this. And we think people have. And the numbers now prove that. So I don't know what it means. Like, you're right. And you and I have talked about this off the air. But I have to make a decision this summer. I probably wasn't going to stay on the show anyway, because of however it was presented. For me personally, I felt like I wanted this to be our show, but I don't think the industry really looked at it as it was our show, and that, I believe, is a huge mistake if you understand how the show works.
I'm a giant star, and it's hard. That's kind of a joke. The exciting part, personally, is to get to take the ideas of this, to take some of the things that we've done here into that space. SportsCenter's never really empowered. So
you're going to steal all my ideas and take them on a TV show?
Without question. I'll footnote you sometimes. I mean, if it's a Russillo thing, I'll say, hey, my guy on radio, no.
You can't take my Bill Poling idea.
Nope, you can do that. That's yours 100%. But to take some of the sensibility of radio and take it into that space, the crux of it all was I'm sitting down at the Masters with one of the head honchos here, and I'm watching Olbermann do a show, and I thought, man, it'd be fun to be able to do SportsCenter like that. And I'm not going to steal Olbermann's show because I won't open up with a rant like he does because I couldn't do that as well. But I doubt that he would do a segment about bad beats featuring the worst gambling loss of the night. I plan to do that. I plan to focus extensively on MAC football, and we'll have fun with it. But nothing that I've ever done in this business has been as professionally challenging or satisfying or rewarding as doing this. I made the false assumption. I'll never forget, and Paul Papps can vouch for me. Paul is one of Patrick's producers. Dan was here. I sat in for him, and it was about 4 minutes into the first segment of the show, and I looked up and I thought, well, I'm about out. That's all I got. And we got 3 more hours. And I realized in that horror that I can't do this. This is hard to do. It's hard to do well, and you have to find a great foil. Or if you're Colin, you can fill the space with your own thoughts and ideas. Good for you. That's a heck of a challenge too. But it's been rewarding beyond measure. It's been satisfying beyond measure, and I could have kept doing it for a long, long time and been happy. But now I look forward to trying to do something that can be the next thing, and we can make it that as rewarding as well. And I know Ryan is going to do the exact same thing and do bigger and better things with me out of his way, jamming him up all the time. But again, this morning is more than I can possibly say thanks for. So we're psyched to know that you've enjoyed it, and we'll enjoy it. I don't know if somebody's going to come in here and yank me out of the studio and say, that's it, shut her down. I don't even know how that's going to work. Well, I guess we'll figure out the details of that. I get to stay the rest of the day, though, right? We're doing to talk more about sports?
Yeah, I don't have enough content.
Okay, cool.
Solo.
You were late again today.
You're not going to have to deal with that much longer, I figure I can probably I don't even know what time you have to show up to be on time at midnight.
Right, well, we're not trying to be coy about this, but we honestly don't know. So, we're going to ride this out, I imagine, through the NBA playoffs, and it's not anybody's fault. We're just figuring it out, right? Nobody knows.
That's true.
Right. So there you
go. And we look forward to seeing what's next for everybody.
SVP and Russillo.
4 games for Tom Brady. Assess.
2 things. One is I sit here and go, they screwed up. They cheated in whatever definition of the word cheat you want to use. And I understand the NFL and the way this was really worded. They mentioned Spygate, and it's like, stop doing stupid stuff. Stop doing this. You don't need to do this. The Spygate thing didn't help. The deflated footballs did not help. The other side of me goes, this is what everybody wants, right? Stiffer punishment. And we've got it in some cases where it really, really matters. Tom Brady's situation is not the same as Ray Rice's. And stop doing the Ray Rice got 2 games and Brady got 4, because it's not what happened to Ray Rice ultimately. Yes, they got it wrong at first. Goodell said he got it wrong, and now everybody got what they wanted. Massive penalties. Ray Rice's career is basically over, by the way, okay? So it's not 2 games. It's actually his career's over. So I do look at this, and as much as I understand the anti-Brady, anti-Patriot stuff and all that stuff, because they screwed up, they cheated, and he lied about it, I don't like the direction where all of this is going, where the public's going, oh, okay, 4 games, no problem, because it's going to start going around and around, and people are going to be facing these punishments that just seem so over the top now.
I couldn't agree more on the Rice thing. The 2 game, it's not 2 games. He didn't play, and he may never play again. And because the commissioner seemed tone deaf in that situation, you wanted. It's the parents that your curfew's midnight. You come in at 1 a.m. and you take the keys away for the next week, and then people say that's ridiculous. Well, now you could come in at 12:01 and you're going to get a month, because the penalties must be much more harsh to satisfy this bloodlust that exists in the world today. But having said that, there is, I think, a cumulative effect as it relates to New England. There is the mess that they've created on their own. They created their own mess here with the way they handled it. Clearly, you can't afford to give the public the perception that you're playing favorites here. And Tom Brady, as much as you can like a lot of things about the guy, went in there and kind of smiled and shrugged and said, "Who, me?"
I don't believe so. I mean, I feel like I've always played within the rules. I would never do anything to break the rules. I believe in fair play, and I respect the league and everything that.
And so, okay, so he said that after the game against the Colts.
Right, so that's the week leading up before everybody left for Arizona to the Super Bowl.
Right. So he goes in there and says, I'm not a cheater. And, I don't know. I don't know how this could happen. We're all wondering the same thing. Well, that doesn't seem like that's the truth. And so are we freaked out about the inflation of a football for real? Apparently. Do we just not care that Minnesota and Carolina played a game where they both took the footballs and put them underneath the heater, which you can't do? I guess we don't care about that because, neither is really good, and they don't have a past, and they didn't win the Super Bowl, and so you don't want to call them cheaters. What they did was cheating. Can't do that. They did it. So
I'm okay with some gray areas, though. I'm okay
too.
with gray areas in sports, and this is a little different. We're talking about footballs being removed from the officials' room so a guy can go in there and deflate them. Doesn't make any sense. McNally not being offered up again to the Wells report. Well, the Patriots, if you have nothing going on, there's nothing wrong, then why do you do that? Brady not handing over his cell phone, I have zero problem with. We're talking about a different cat here, and you know how this stuff goes down. Next thing you know, 2 months later, a weird picture of Giselle pops up. I don't blame Brady at all for not handing over his cell phone.
No chance.
But whenever I think about what can be labeled as cheating, and everybody's out, the punishments are inconsistent. Almost every crime is inconsistent. It's very hard to find 2 that are exactly the same to go 4 games here and 4 games for you because what you both did is the exact same offense. It's hard to find that stuff. But whenever I think about tampering in the NBA or the NFL free agents sign at 12:01 a.m., the first minute they're available to be free agents. Well, technically, yeah, that means that somebody called them ahead of time, and agents work with teams days ahead of time to work out these deals. Does anyone care? I don't. Only the team that loses their free agent cares and then wants to claim tampering. When LeBron and Wade and Bosh all got together, everybody's like, well, this is wrong. Well, no, it's not wrong. Maybe it's kind of illegal, but it's gray. It doesn't really matter, and it can't be enforced. The players are going to talk prior to free agency, decide where they want to go. They're going to go ahead and do those things. So I do think a home team has an advantage with some of the stuff that's out there. This seems to go a little beyond that, and Brady's getting busted for lying, and the Patriots are getting slapped even harder because of the Patriots and the way they handled Spygate, and the fact that I think there's a real pushback around the league from Belichick in general. So it all adds up, but I can still not like the direction it's going or what the punishment ultimately was last night.
I said last week he's going to get sat. You knew it had to happen. The NFL creates this need for it to. It creates the need for it.
They had to be justified. Is
yes.
What I'm trying to say, right?
Well, it's the clumsy handling of this stuff, and I mean, if you're New England, you got a Super Bowl. You won a Super Bowl, and you're going to lose 4 games the next year. Is it worth it? I mean, you had a parade, And
is it worth it? Are you kidding? They'll give you another 4. They'll give you 8.
Thank you. Guarantee. Of course it is. So I mean, hey, we just let us know when the next parade is. But it's just this ham-handed way that the league is, and everyone keeps pointing it out, making it up as they go. To your point, there isn't some rule book where you say, okay, let's see, let's flip through. What do we have here? Really good quarterback. The pounds per square inch wasn't quite right. Was he honest about it? Don't know. He won't give us his phone? Well, there's some texts. Okay, let's see. What do you think? 4? 4 seem right? I don't know. 4? 8? 8? Nah,
4 because it'll end up being 2 once it's appealed.
Wow, we're going to lose that Thursday nighter against Pittsburgh. It's all right. We'll put off some fireworks and, it'll be all right. People will be psyched at this football game.
People are still going to watch. People are going to watch.
Of course
people are going to watch to see what Garoppolo does, and people will watch for
Jimmy G.
The mood, the tone of what's the game coverage like, knowing that Brady's not allowed to even play in this. So that actually becomes an odd attraction to non-traditional viewers.
And you got the Pats, Twitter feed turning their picture there, their avatar is the back of Brady's jersey because they're standing side by side with Tom. I'm trying to figure out if at the very beginning, if he walks into that room and he says, listen, I tell our guys that I want those footballs right up against the baseline for whatever what's the least amount of air we can have in there. Give me that because that's the way I like it to feel. And if it was beneath that, that's not on those guys. That's on me. I should have just left it alone. Whatever it is, it is. The fine's $25,000 if you follow the letter of the law. Would that have satisfied the mob, the bloodlust?
No,
it wouldn't have. But if you don't just do the wasn't me, perhaps there would have been something that would have satisfied the public beyond this. I don't know.
Once I heard Belichick, I thought that's exactly what was going to happen on that Friday. And then Brady goes with the wasn't me, and you go, whoa, all right, so they're going to the death on this one. Because you knew something had to be up, although the math on the deflation on this stuff is really, really close. But I'd ask you this, with all of us, and I think people who love the punishment wanted more or hate the punishment. I think we all collectively agree that nobody really knows what to predict. So what if Brady says, I guess our guys were going a little south of what's legal. Do you put yourself in that position to deal with an unpredictable commissioner and league a week out to playing for a championship? I mean, is there anything there where you go, well, let's not even mess around with this? Like, they can't figure it out in the next 7 days, so don't admit to anything, because who knows? They could just. I mean, people were asking for him to be suspended before the Super Bowl.
It's a little bit like the Cam Newton with Auburn. You're pot committed. Just ride it out, and we'll deal with. If something happens after the fact, we're going to play Oregon. And then if you guys come in and tell us to take the banner down after the fact, whatever. We were all there. We lived it.
And the best part about doing it in college is you get to leave. Like, there's not another league breeding.
See ya. Right?
Well, I'll be in the CFL, you guys.
I just think punishment and crime, it just seems preposterous to me. It just does. Again, I can't summon outrage over something that's just not outrageous. Although for many of you it becomes a very, very convenient catch-all that means that Brady and this team have done all of this with smoke and mirrors because they've cheated for this whole time. And that's a fun world to live in. Give me the coordinates to that on the GPS so I can come hang out and make-believe world with you.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Time for Scott Van Pelt's One Big Thing. One Big Thing. On ESPN Radio and ESPNradio.com.
I'm actually, in some ways, glad that this whole news thing involving our show happened the way it did, because it didn't give me a lot of time to sit around and map out what I wanted to say here or what I wanted to try to say, because it's probably just better that I just ramble. Second Wolf of Wall Street reference of the first hour of the show today. I feel like that scene where Belfort walks in front of his group, and then he looks around the room and takes inventory and hit and says, "I'm not leaving. I'm not freaking leaving. They get it easy. Oh, they didn't get me out of here." But I am going, and I'm going to go do the SportsCenter thing, and we're going to try to make it great, and I think we can. But what's important for you guys to know about this show and these people that you do this show with, and this is the hard part to try to even talk about. It started with a producer named Amanda Brown, who's out in Los Angeles now, and Ray Netchie sat in the chair for quite a long while, and then it became Stanford Steve. And really, in the end, this core group of people, especially Stanford Steve, and especially Ryan, are like brothers. And I mean that in every way. Guys that you battle with, and that you go to battle with, and who you don't always agree with, who I know I'm not the easiest guy to deal with all the time, because I'm used to things going a certain way. I don't show up at 11:30 on the dot. I show up late. That sucks to deal with. I say I'll be better, but I'm not. But I'd battle anybody with these two guys anywhere, anytime, because they're great at what they do. They make me better. They made me better in this space, and we did exactly what we set out to do. Exactly. We didn't waver. We didn't change course when people tried to push us in a different direction, and we were right. This morning's reaction is validation that we were always right. We didn't need to do anything different. If you didn't get it in your offices, it was never for you, because the people that were supposed to get it did, and they got it in bigger and bigger numbers. And I hope Ryan continues in this chair, and he'll build on what we've done and make it bigger and make it better. But when I heard that guy on the radio a long time ago talking about, are we just this lucky? And I thought, who's that guy? His voice is deeper than mine, and he makes sense. And I wanted to do a show with him, and we have. And it's been, as I said, as professionally satisfying and personally to get to come to work with these idiots every day and have fun and be serious. And I can't even look at Russillo because I don't want to go off on a deep end, because you know how emotional I get. We fought maybe twice, and they were good ones. But we really only got into it a couple of times, and mostly we were able to give each other enough room to let those storms spin themselves out. But I'm proud of what we've done together. And it's not like it ends today. We're going to keep doing this for a while, but I know that there's going to come a time here, and it's getting shorter all the time, where we won't do it anymore. But I feel like we should play Sinatra, and we did it our way because we did. And it's been fun.
It has been a lot of fun, and yesterday was another one of those things you did your Stan Barrett impersonation of him as a car dealer. And
that's what I said.
I was tearing up laughing, and then driving home, you go, this is almost over. I mean, you and I have known that this was in the works now for a little while. You called me, I think, 3 weeks ago and said, okay, I'm going to go do this TV thing. And I had told you, as I have to make a decision this summer, that I have to start thinking about a bunch of different things as well.
This is a little bit of a, you can't fire me, I quit.
But, if I ever get this show picked up, a sitcom based on Bigfoot and his relatives.
I think it's got all the makings.
I do. I think there's a lot of networks I think it has a home. But I appreciate you saying that, because I never knew. Look, man, SportsCenter is a huge deal, so I never knew that you found this as professionally satisfying. And when this is going and it's fun, there's nothing more fun. And I'll never forget, 1999, I wanted to be an anchor. I worked at CAX in Burlington, a CBS affiliate. And I go, I want to be, the next Craig Kilborn. And then I'm writing copy for some of these guys, and they rarely ever used any of it. and they'd be like, hey, less opinion. And I go, that's the fun part. Why would I want to watch all this stuff and think all these things and never get to say what I think? And I think you starting on that path and then ending up on the radio side of it, like you get to see how much fun this can really be. And I remember I was in Trenton 3 years later in 2002, and you were hanging out with Dan Patrick, and you were filling in and doing some shows, or you were stopping by for an hour. And it's just so weird that I would be in my car in 2002 and listening to you, and I'm going, man, that Van Pelt guy, like, I bet you that guy's cool.
Nope.
And 13 years later, I'm like, he isn't, but he is a lot of fun on the show.
Now you know the sad truth.
So I don't really – I know I'm supposed to be sadder, but I don't know that I am.
No, you don't have to fake it.
I'm really psyched about what we did, and everybody getting after us today going, this show was awesome. This was a show. And part of me, you know what, part of me is sad that I go, it'd be great if everything was right and every piece was in place here and we get to roll with this for another 5 years to see what would happen. But I don't know if it would work that way, and I'm glad we're talking about it now because the rumor stuff starts up. It's crazy this never got out. I can't believe it just got out today at the upfronts. So, like, this isn't being canceled. Like, some of the stuff that you're reading today is so far off. You have an amazing opportunity that you have to say yes to, and we'll figure out the rest later.
That's it in a nutshell. I mean, that's the part that I'm allowing myself to focus today on the things like this, the parts that I'll miss. Ultimately, you transition to how excited you are about that, and then I look forward to finding out whatever it is that I hope the space becomes yours, just so I can come crash and give people winners on Friday. I'd hate to have no home for that, but
podcast only,
dude. 60% 2 years running. There's an old saying. There's an old saying. It's better to leave a party a half an hour too early than a half an hour too late. And I guess we're going to get our keys and get out of here while we can still make sense of the road.
We should have a party.
Oh, we'll do something before it's over. We'll definitely do something before it's over.
SVP and Russillo.
No, for real.
We try on this show not to drastically overrate or overreact to what we have seen most recently. That has been a tenet of this show from its earliest days. And you held fast to your belief that Golden State would be okay, but admitted that, yeah, a little shook, sure. Hey, they lost 2 games in a row, and Golden State wasn't playing their style. Memphis had things going their way. Steph goes for 33 last night, and they win. They finally shoot well. They're 2 good shooters, shoot well. Atlanta had
Clay wasn't great last night.
Pardon?
Clay wasn't great, but that's coming off a 12 for 52 performance from 3 in games 2 and 3.
Correct. It was way better than that, and it was enough to win and win easily.
Way better, right?
And that's easy victories in that building do not come really very often at all. And they win in Atlanta. How about this stat? The Wizards were 10 of 15 in the first half from 3 and trailed by 10. Shot 67% on 15 attempts from 3 and trailed by double digits. So both Golden State and Atlanta, the 2-1 seeds, who were both down 2-1 and both on the road, shot well and won. Do you feel, as we try not to drastically overact, but perhaps do you feel now that with home court and a best of 3 that they both win?
Feel better about Golden State, actually. And that has nothing to do with what I think of Memphis, because I'm incredibly impressed with them, because I didn't think they had enough scoring to win 4 of 7, and they're sitting there at 2, and they're scary enough that I don't think the witch is dead yet with the Memphis Grizzlies. I feel better about the Warriors. I think the Warriors may look back at games 2 and 3 and go, that's when we were tested. That's when, if the Warriors win a title, they'll look back on games 2 and 3 against Memphis and go, that's when we responded and showed that we had it, instead of having to learn how to be tough all offseason and being mad about getting eliminated earlier. Atlanta should be running this series. There's no John Wall, and they're not. And it's a fight the rest of the way. Washington could still win this thing without Wall, based on what I've seen through 4 games.
The Wizards were down double digits / I mean, it was always a fairly comfortable working margin. The Warriors were going to win. That was pretty evident. They were never really threatened in that second half.
Totally.
Atlanta led by 10, but then it's back and forth in the 5.
Well, you
6,
always
7,
feel
8.
like you're in it, right? 6'10",
Yes.
6'10".
Yeah, it's all you need is 1 or 2 threes, and that's kind of what happened. And all of a sudden, the Wizards get the ball, and they get an incredible look for the guy you want to take that shot, Paul Pierce. You know, I called win. I didn't call bank. I called win. The guy that in the first series against Toronto was making big shots and pointing at the crowd and saying, that's why I'm here. Well, that guy got that shot, and it would have tied the game. And it would have left Atlanta reeling, I think. The idea that, wait, we're tied with these guys? Well, he missed. And so now it's 2-2, and I feel the same. And I keep thinking this Walls can't, well, we'll see if he can play tonight. The man's got 5 broken bones in his hand. And it's one thing to be able to play through pain, but you can't be a one-handed point guard. You need to at least be able to use your left, and Wall uses his left quite a bit.
Kurkjian did it.
I stand corrected.
Kurkjian.
That series still feels like it's up for grabs too, because I mean, as you say, Washington's been without Wall, and they're still tied at 2.
Beal's been great. He had 34. The shooting
night.
Numbers weren't ideal. I still can't figure out what Atlanta's doing defensively, because you'd think it'd be more DeMarre Carroll on Beal, because Beal's the guy that makes them go, despite how effective Pierce has been.
You tweeted about this last night.
Right, but they put Korver on him, and then Korver has to chase Beal all over the place. And now Korver's not – the shooting numbers aren't terrible, but he just doesn't feel like the same threat from 3 that he is during the regular season. And then they went with Schroeder when they went with the 2-guard lineup with Schroeder and Teague, and then Carroll's on Pierce and Otto Porter at times. Like, I'd rather have Korver stick in the corner on Porter or deal with Pierce in the post a little bit. I know he probably abused him there too, but instead of having to chase Beal all over the place, and when Korver's whole offense is running around.
That's exactly what I was going to say. The thing about Korver's offense is that it is predicated on never being stationary and running around off 18 screens until finally you catch with just enough airspace to get that shot off. You've got to spend that much energy offensively, and to have a guy chasing, I totally agreed with that.
I mean, Izzo over here, and I try to defer to these coaches that there's probably something that he has a lot more information on where he goes, actually, we need to do this specifically. Mm-hmm. But it's just something I notice when I watch Atlanta play in this series.
It's SVP Russillo here on ESPN Radio. Some breaking news from the NBA that isn't entirely shocking. The Pelicans, though they did make the playoffs this year, have moved on from Monty Williams. The quote, making a decision like this is never easy and is never done hastily, especially when you're dealing with a person of Monty Williams' character. We thanked him, blah, 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 blah. Mickey Loomis said their executive vice president.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Remember they said injuries aren't excuses, playoffs are not, for Monty Williams and Dell Demps, the GM. What do you say of your Monty Williams? Is this wrong?
I think it's not wrong. It's just it just shows you why organizationally you just can't paint yourself into a corner here. I think a lot of people that follow the league pretty closely just kind of shrug at what Monty does a lot of the time. You can like a guy a lot as a person, but as an X's and O's guy, doesn't have a ton of support. I wonder, with Anthony Davis and Tyreek Evans on the roster, I wonder if you make a phone call to Lexington. Do you call Coach Cal?
Chapman?
They had about 5 swings and misses at the very end of the recruiting cycle with a bunch of guys that are headed to places like Cal and Kansas and
Maryland.
No, they weren't in on it. They weren't in on the guy, the Maryland guy, but they swung him.
I just want to get that Maryland buzz going. We're going to keep that going here.
Yeah, I plan on using this late night show as basically a propaganda piece. You could expect to see extensive Maryland. All right, tonight the Terps and taking on Wofford. Let's check out. Actually, Wofford.
Vote our transition to the Big East of Van Pelt. He's a very powerful radio show.
Cal, how about it? Come on.
The recruiting thing at first, and this was my resistance while Cal was still in the tournament, was that, he has to leave. And I'm going, why does everybody have to leave all the time, even when it's going really well? But you kept bringing up every recruiting loss, which you're not used to. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. Does this mean he has to get everyone? But you're just putting it all together. And I might be coming around to your side on this more.
I'm just shrugging and asking the question. And by the way, Kentucky's class is still rated by most as a top 5 class. There's one guy who is a big 7-footer, 5-star kid who there's some questions about whether or not he'll qualify. The Kentucky people will naturally say, of course he is. And then there are others that are not Big Blue Nation members, as Ryan is.
He's going to be fine, Scott. He's going to qualify.
Well, as the president of Big Blue Nation, I trust Ryan, but I don't know if he'll qualify. Anyway.
It's an experience and an education.
Understood. Generational wealth. I understand he's building that too. The issue is that you get so used to seeing him get everybody, and now all of a sudden they're in with schools like NC State for a 3-star kid, and who knows, maybe that player turns out to be great, but this just isn't.
You think Cal's leaving? You think it all adds up to Cal leaving?
I wonder if the chatter is such that people think he won't stay,
or is that why he's not getting recruits?
I don't know. I wonder. I'm just asking a question. Is it not feasible that could be the type of chatter that exists? And if you're Cal, and you've coached under that type of pressure and level of expectation, where the only thing that was going to be acceptable this year was 40-0, and that anything else was going to be somehow be graded by somebody as a failure, not a massive success, that's a hell of a world to live in. You know, you just see that. I'm connecting low-hanging dots here and saying a couple of guys that he knows. I have no idea if they have the money. I have no idea if it even interests him. I just wonder if the talk that an NBA job could be in the offing for him has hurt with some of these guys, because there was about 5 or 6 big-time guys, and none of them chose Kentucky.
Under Armour's not printing them shirts for Maryland this year?
What are you talking about? Oh, 40-0?
Yeah.
Nah, man. Humble and hungry. That's the Under Armour way. Humble and hungry. Head down.
Yeah, just like at the Preakness this Saturday.
Just keep on churning.
Will not be hungry there.
Nope. Going to eat well. Prime rib. Great.
Crab cakes?
Yeah, a proper crab cake. By the way, if there's a crab cake on the menu, they say this is a real Maryland-style crab cake. If it's flat like a hockey puck and has little red and green peppers at it, just take it and throw it at somebody, because it's not a real crab cake. It should look like it was put together in your hands, and it should basically fall apart. That's a crab cake from Maryland. You've never had one, you've never had a real crab cake.
I just want to add that if those guys don't want to come down to Lexington and be part of Big Blue Nation, then we don't want you. Because we like people that compete and want to compete, not people that want something handed to them. So we don't need you. Go to Cal. Hang out with all your weirdos.
That's the credo.
Yeah, that's what we say.
Big Blue Nation, and then in parentheses, weirdo free. No weirdos to see here. Again,
I love that there's some Cal guy who has no idea what we're doing. He's like so mad.
He's outraged.
They don't listen to the show.
Yeah, you're right. Not strong in Berkeley.
That's all right. They got other stuff to do. Coming up next.
We don't want you.
SVP and Russillo.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. NFL insider Mark Dominik joins us now in studio, and this Brady news, you and I talked about it last night on SportsCenter. As you sleep on it, you wake up the next day, you put yourself in the Patriot shoes. Outside of changing your avatar picture to the back of Brady's jersey, which is obviously a little, hey, how you doing to the league. What are you doing to manage your first quarter of the season if that's how long he's out?
Yeah, I mean, I think last night the thing you did as a general manager is you went through the quarterback list that's on the street, because as much as I have confidence in Jimmy Garoppolo to be the starter because of the experience he got last year and I think how he played, you definitely have to have a veteran backup who's played before. So the first phone call I made this morning is to Kyle Orton and to say, are you seriously going to retire? Do you want to come back and finish up a season? And almost to the point where I say, look, I'll keep 3 quarterbacks next year if you decide to play the whole year. Help us go win a ring. So he's the first call and find out whether or not he wants to play. And then the 3 other veterans that I talked to the coaching staff of and they call, number 1 is Michael Vick, but it's whether or not they mind a left-handed quarterback in their system. That's important. And Jason Campbell. Both guys have played multiple systems. Both guys, I think, have shown they can learn different offenses. But I got to call those 2 guys, theoretically. I know, Michael Vick, you're like, well.
No, I'm laughing about Campbell because I'm thinking whoever the offensive coordinator is, there's a chance he's already played for him. I mean, anywhere he goes next, there's a chance he's played in that system. And
the last phone call is Flynn. He doesn't have the experience the other 2 have in terms of throwing the ball, but he is used to a heavy verbiage offense, and that's what New England has in terms of spitting the play out in the huddle and be able to make a call. But to me, Flynn's a 4th just because he doesn't have the experience that I really want. But those are the 4 phone calls I make this morning and get that process started, because even if it knocked down, which I don't personally think it will get down to 2, but even if it does get down to 2, I still want a veteran just in case, because you got to plan for worst case scenario.
There was a question I wanted to ask you, but I got to follow up on that. Why do you think it does not get knocked down to 2 when so many people do?
I get the sense that the league there's a couple things in it. Number 1, I think that I've been a part of one of these before, and I didn't comply, and I got hit with a massive fine. I didn't. The organization got hit with a fine. I wasn't going to release all the phone records I wanted to release. We had an incident back in 2011.
Yeah, can you take us through this?
Yeah, where Raheem Morris was having a flippant conversation, And one of the things he says, I talk to players all the time. Well, that was during the lockout when you weren't, quote unquote, supposed to talk to players. Now, he was just saying he talked to players, but not like physically talked to players. Like he wasn't calling them up and checking them.
Former head coach, right?
The former head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, the league obviously got it and ran with it. And so we turned over, I'd say, about 5,000 or 6,000 phone calls. We handed over our cell phone records, and the phones, we didn't know what they were. We actually had it in front of the lead investigator. We'd dial the number and hold our breath and go, ESPN Naples. Good. Okay. That was okay. But we would have to go through. Well, they wanted.
Those guys are awesome too.
They wanted another like 1,000 phone calls. And I was just done. I was like through the building. I'm like, I'm just done with this whole situation. Well, sure enough, I told them no. About 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail that says, here's a 6-figure fine for not cooperating with the league. Are you sure you don't want to cooperate? Well, we cooperated then. And so my point is, with Tom Brady not cooperating, and I get that he has the right not to have to turn over the cell phone, but that's a big deal to the league. They look at that as a guilt. And that's where I think with this situation, I take them in two different things. I take obviously the fine and the draft picks in one area, and Tom Brady and his suspension in another. And I think because of his lack of cooperation in that area, I don't think they'll rescind the fine or the suspension.
I don't have a problem. I don't think Scott or I had a problem with Brady handing over his cell phone. I just think he's at a different level, and we can all assume a bunch of different things. I just, we're talking about a guy that's married to one of the most famous women in the world.
No question.
So I didn't have a problem with that. A question, though, about the suspension coming out, because one side of it's Goodell, Kraft. Okay, well, it's even harsher because Goodell has to prove. Goodell has to seem to prove everything to everybody, and even then, not everybody loves what he does. How many owners do you think, how many front offices today are excited about where this went, or how many are going, what I think is the smarter play, going, it's all become that much more dangerous for all of us in everything we do?
Well, I think that's it. I think what happened today, and again, clubs have to sign like these end-of-the-year forms that says, hey, we didn't cheat, we don't know what was cheating, and an affidavit, basically, and send it back to the league at the end of the year saying, I know of no cheating, we didn't cheat, and I haven't heard of any cheating anywhere else around the league.
And everyone's lying.
Probably, right? I mean, to some extent. But I think what happened today, unless you're in Dallas or obviously Cincinnati or something like that, I think every owner had a conference call or a phone call with their general manager this morning and said, let's make sure we're walking the normal. Let's make sure we don't step out of bounds here. Because when you think about it, Cleveland and Atlanta now are already at one strike. So they're on their way to a heavy fine and the loss of massive draft picks if another thing happens on their watch. And obviously that watch is long. And that's where the big difference is between players and organizations now is players can get themselves out of the drug program. Players can get themselves out of being a legal hit or hit to the head over time. Clearly clubs can't. Because you're talking about an incident that happened 7 years ago, and that's still factored into the equation today, tells me that they're holding the clubs at a different standard than players, which is fine. But I think owners are talking to their general managers right now saying, we better be doing the right thing here. And if you think or know of anything, let's cut it out now before the season starts going forward.
Mark Dominik is our guest, former GM and front office insider here for us at ESPN. But what percentage would you say of the feedback you've had from your former peers and guys you know around the league, would you say it's more, this seems right, or would you say it's more, man, this is pretty harsh?
No, it felt more, this is right. And I don't think the people look at it from the financial aspect of it, but I do think that a lot of people, the couple guys I spoke to sat there and said, look, you can define the line of cheating wherever you want, right, theoretically. But the rules state the rules. And so if you're trying to, quote-unquote, gain an edge, it isn't gaining an edge. You're cheating. I mean, that's just the way it is. And so this could have been resolved, but a lot of them have just sat there and said, hey, look, take it, run with it, and use it as a motivator and just keep moving. That's what we would do in our organization.
I always try to say when it comes to some legal stuff, like, why can't we apply more common sense? So I'm going to sound like I'm contradicting myself. Whenever I read about divorce terms, I go, can a judge just go, hey, look, like he was kind of doing all right before you guys hooked up. But, that's a whole other topic.
That's at 2:30 Eastern.
Right. But the way this is, and the common sense in me tells me, clearly he was doing something, and it didn't just happen in one game, and these guys were instructed in the text messages afterwards. But if you were to apply the same stuff to a guy in PEDs where you go like, hey, you hang out with Bond's trainer, now you're jacked and your bench numbers are up, I'm suspending you 4 games, it's kind of what it is. Right. So that's the thing where I go, I get why the league did what they did. Clearly the Patriots did something wrong, but I don't know how it stays at 4 games considering there isn't that failed drug test. There isn't anything other than just connecting a bunch of dots.
More than probable.
Right. I mean, I don't know how you go more than probable. Like, the NFL's won with their headlines, and they came down and hammered them because we won't care about the appeal process as much because it's probably going on leading up to everybody excited for the start of the season.
No, I think you're right. And I think you're seeing a heavy hand from the league office. And I think you're going to see a heavy hand from the league office on anything going forward. Look,
they box themselves in.
We're totally on the same page.
There's no room now. You can't suddenly go light on the next
on
try.
Anything.
It's got to be worse. It seems like we must be exponentially worse at every turn.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of what the league has done, right? I mean, from Ray Rice, they said, "Whoops." So now, from now on, everything else is hammer time.
And that guy's career might be over now.
Yeah, Ray Rice?
Not that anybody has a ton of sympathy for Ray Rice, but I look at it from time to time and go, he'd be on a team right now.
Oh, yeah, no, there's no doubt. I mean, he's paid the ultimate price of anybody. I mean, it's different. So I got to take a step back. But you think about Gregory, and you think about, obviously, Ray, and then you got Collins, who may have done nothing wrong, and he paid an ultimate price because of his timing. Ray Rice was timing. And if the league office would have come down with 4 games, who knows how this would have all played out. But the reality is this commissioner's not messing around anymore, or is the league office in terms of punishments. And they're going to come down heavy. And if it gets rescinded or if it gets pulled back or less games or less fines, they don't look like they're soft. And that's, I think, their mindset now is going to be, we're going to bring it. And if an arbitrator says it's less, it's not our fault. And that's a tough place to be in as a club because a lot of people's livelihood dependent upon, what's going on there. And sometimes you feel like you're battling not only 31 other clubs, but you're also battling New York sometimes.
Mark, appreciate the time always.
You bet. My pleasure to be on.
ESPN Radio, bringing you directly to the biggest events in sports.
Center field, well hit, Hunter back, out of here!
From opening day of baseball,
throw to the plate, safe at the plate,
right through the World Series.
For the 3rd time in 5 seasons, the San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
Whether it's LeBron, Chris Paul, or Kevin Durant, when the NBA tips off, ESPN Radio is right there when a champion is crowned.
Have a new world champion. The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
And when the magic of bowl season arrives, ESPN Radio is your home for the new college football playoff.
The college football playoff first national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
The biggest events in sports can be found right here on ESPN Radio. SVP and Russillo.
Mayo's the best condiment. Tim, the Yankees at 21-12. It feels like we tend to make a bigger deal out of them when they struggle, when we have expectations, as opposed to when they're good and we don't. How surprising is this start for them to you?
Well, I sure didn't see this coming, Scott. I didn't see Alex Rodriguez being this productive. I didn't see Mark Teixeira, who's had a bunch of physical issues the last couple of years, coming back and hitting this many homers. I didn't see Chris Young being this productive. And Jacoby Ellsbury and Brett Gardner are good players, but I didn't know they were going to be this good because they've been fabulous. And then there's Michael Pineda, who was such a bust because of injuries and out of shape. Got 3 walks and 54 strikeouts. I didn't see him being that good. And what all this does to me is, in a very winnable division, it throws the Yankees right in the middle of it with everybody else. I mean, this division is going to go right down to the wire, and now the Yankees are better than anyone in the division right now, and I simply didn't see that coming.
Tim, I want to ask you about Rodriguez because there's rarely been such a contentious and, frankly, odd circumstance involving a player and the year away and all the money that's still owed and him hitting home runs and them denying this marketing clause what's in there because it's at their discretion, et cetera, et cetera. Yet, to your point, he's really playing well. How is the organization – I mean, I'm sure they're pleased. On the one hand, is there still this lingering resentment in this bad marriage that has to continue on?
Well, there's some of that, Scott, but it's mostly, if not all, financial. And the Yankees need him to be really good. So they're rooting for him. And they also see that whether you like the guy or not, he has really tried this spring and all season so far to do and say the right things. Watch one of his interviews, any of his interviews, and they are so measured. It's like he's making sure he says exactly the right thing so he doesn't misstep and doesn't cause himself or the organization any more grief that he's caused to this point. So you got to hand it to him for really working to get himself in shape, doing and saying all the right things, and for that reason, the Yankees don't hate him anymore, but they're not going to pay him, if they can possibly avoid it, for any sort of $6 million for passing Willie Mays, and that's not going to end. They're going to keep hoping he hits homers, but they're going to say this is a separate contract. This is a marketing deal, and you're no longer marketable, whether you believe that or not, and therefore we're not going to pay it. But we still want you to produce because we need you in the middle of our order.
Tim, the Pirates last year, a great story, finally kind of breaking through. This year, expectations are sitting at 500, not in trouble in the NL Central, but McCutchen, Harrison, Alvarez, key guys in our lineup, all way below what you'd think. I know the easy answer is they'll figure it out and they'll turn it around. Is there any greater concern with those guys specifically?
Well, Andrew McCutchen's knee is an issue, and depending on who you talk to, and I've talked to several people, and a few have told me he's fine, there's no structural damage, he's okay, and others aren't so sure that he's okay. He's not going to be the player they need him to be if he's going to have a lingering knee issue and try to play through it the rest of the year. But the Pirates are basically saying he should be okay. If he's not, then they're going to have trouble making the playoffs. That's how important he is. As for Josh Harrison, I fully expect him to get going at some point because he was such a dynamic player last year. But this is his first year as a full-time everyday player from day one. He's making money he's never made before, and with that comes expectations. But I expect the Pirates to turn this around. And one interesting thing is they have 11 games this year where their hitters haven't walked yet in the whole game, 11 times. They only had that happen 6 times last year, 14 times in the last 2 years combined, and it just doesn't seem like they're anywhere close to the patient team that they've been in recent years.
Tim Kurkjian, weekly visit. After what Madison Bumgarner did in the World Series, in the playoffs in particular, like that was a real thing. That might be the greatest thing we've ever seen. And I don't think that's hyperbole.
It's certainly on the list.
But he's always a guy for me, Tim, that like I don't expect that Pedro regular season from him. I don't expect one of those Schilling regular seasons from, despite what he did last year in the playoffs. So when I look at the rotation, how has Lincecum, I'm not saying he's better than Madison Bumgarner, but how's Lincecum gotten back to the point where he's a real chance to win every 5th day?
Well, I saw him in spring training, and he threw really well. And apparently he got together with his father in the off season, and they went back and worked on some things. As you know, he has a complicated delivery that his father taught him. And I talked to his father, and I talked to Lincecum this spring, and they worked a whole lot more in the off season together. And that has nothing to do with Dave Brighetti, the pitching coach of the Giants, who's one of the best in the game. Lincecum just went to his dad and said, look, I got to get better than this. So they got on a mound a whole lot more in the offseason, and maybe we're seeing the results now. He's had 3 starts where he hasn't given up any runs. He's only really had 1 bad start so far, and he's pitched really, really well. And the Giants are still hanging around this thing, in part because the guy they just didn't know what they were going to get. They're getting really, really good results from Tim Lincecum.
Tim, what's been the reaction around the league to Bryce Harper's week?
Well, I'm always amused that people consider him to be the most overrated player in the game, and I understand how sometimes he rubs people the wrong way, but I think people are now looking at him and saying, okay, he has found it now. I think he found it in the playoffs last year. He hit some stunningly hard-hit balls against the Giants in the playoffs, and I think this spring when they basically said, you're in the middle of the order, let's go, this is when he takes off. He's younger than Chris Bryant is. He's like 6 months older than my son, who just graduated from college. This is ridiculous, and yet we feel like he's been around for 8 years or something. It's only a matter of time before that guy becomes a sensational hitter. And I think he's getting real close to that right now. And the last week has been a joke. He's been that good.
Yeah, it's been a treat to watch. But before I let you go, Tim, I don't know if you can help me with one thing. Do you know what Slick Rick and Dougie Fresh wear to smell good?
Help if I knew who either one of those guys are.
No. Oh, you don't?
No,
set up guys for the Reds.
Yeah, there's some prospects for the Reds. A kid named Slick Rick, and there's another guy named Dougie Fresh. Anyway, what they wear when they want to smell good is they wear the Fresh Polo cologne. Thank you, Tim. Have a good Tuesday.
I'm such a loser. I can't believe this.
You're always going to laugh, Tim, and we're always going to love it. Have fun. Have a nice day.
SVP and Russillo. Earlier today on SVP and Russillo.
We told you about the news that the things are changing here, and it's been a nice day. I saw this tweets just put in front of me here. Mike Tirico said, "They say leave it better than you found it." Well, SVP and Russillo did more than that. Well done, guys. Mike and I did this. We're in this space together for a while. Then it was just kind of me, and then it became you and I. I appreciate Richard Deitch from Sports Illustrated, who covers media, saying, and I'm just quoting, "Amazing to see the Twitter feedback I've received on SVP and Russillo following the Van Pelt's news. Sometimes management doesn't know what it has." I'm just quoting what he said. But yeah, it's been humbling to see what it's meant, and we'll see what becomes of this nighttime show. It should be fun. I'm gonna because you're the guy that's been behind all the great ideas. I'm gonna take you out, ply you with liquor, and just say, tell me what you think, and just jot down, just jot it all down, and then steal it, and then put it on TV. That's my big plan. How's that sound?
Sounds great. Sounds just super. Yeah, I mean, I come up with some stuff. I don't think we could ever use most of them.
Yeah, but late night TV, midnight, cable. Come on, man, you could do anything there.
No, I don't know how it would be funny how this show will be looked at with you and I. Where it becomes that band that years later, like who's really good, and then somehow like people will look back and think we're better than we even were.
Blitzen Trapper.
Right, there you go. I don't know, but I know that it's exciting for you to do this thing at night because I think ESPN's tried to figure out a way to do this for a long time. I remember before I was even doing the show with you, I remember we're going to do this late night thing, and it could be you. I think Aaron Andrews was even mentioned. There was this idea that a late night show could be done here. And I think if anybody can do it, it's you. I always worry about it with the Disney stuff. I mean, can you really do it as edgy as you needed to do it? I don't know. I mean, I'm not even saying that's what it is. I mean, it's still SportsCenter.
Still going to be SportsCenter. Still going to be SportsCenter.
So, I'm pumped for you. I guess I'm not as sad today as I thought I should be, or maybe we both thought we would be, because I'm kind of fired up for you to do this. And I don't know if we were going to do this for another 5 years.
Probably
set up the same way that it's been set up the previous 6.
No, so it's much more. The old be happy that it happened. Not sad that it ended. Be happy that it was kind of a deal, and we both are. And I'm equally as excited about whatever it is that's next for you, wherever it may be, because it will be bigger and better.
Miguel Cabrera leads the Detroit Tigers into Anaheim to face Mike Trout and the Los Angeles Angels. The pregame's at 7 Eastern, followed by first pitch at 8, Sunday on ESPN2 and on ESPN Radio.